This is Audible.
Macmillan Audio presents Swimming Lessons by Lili Reinhart, read for you by the author. To my Nana, who always loved my voice. Introduction. I believe that we read poetry to relate to the world. We see our lives through the words of a poet when we are incapable of expressing ourselves. I started reading poetry as a way to comfort myself through spells of depression. Discovering poems that closely reflected the thoughts in my own head became reassuring in a time when I felt severely misunderstood. It's hard to imagine that anyone out there could possibly feel the same things that you do to the depths that you feel them. Therein lies the beauty and surprise of poetry. Once you see that someone understands your feelings, suddenly you're not alone anymore. I decided a little over a year ago that I wanted to share my own collection of poems in the hopes that they could bring comfort to whomever is looking for it. The inspiration for this collection came from personal experiences, as well as experiences that are not my own. Emotion can be explored and felt through the fabrication of a story, and some of these poems were crafted out of pure empathy for those around me. Each one of us leads vastly different lives, and yet we can all relate to the fundamental feelings of happiness and sorrow. I hope that you, the listener, can see yourself reflected in my words. I can't seem to write perfect words or make them flow as they should. They don't sound particularly profound. I can't paint you pretty pictures or blend colors like other artists do. My watercolors don't bleed beautifully. But I can say I love you in as many languages as you need me to. I can be fluent in loving you. It's been a while since I've had a moment to miss you and to cry. This warm summer breeze on my balcony makes me think of Cape Cod and your floral swimsuits. How you never wore sunscreen but always told us we had to. Even in this loud city, quiet moments exist where your spirit is present. And I feel like you're sitting next to me on the beach again. So I'll wait until the sun goes down before I go back inside. For now, we can sit here and listen to the ocean. I love you, darling, were the last words you said to me. And although I don't have a recording of it, and although I forgot to save your voicemails, I will never forget the sound of your voice. I see you in every flower and every hummingbird that happens to be near. I'd like to think that it's your spirit just saying hello. You surround me, always. I miss you, and I love you too. This is how I know I love you so much. Whenever I see something beautiful, I want you to see it too. I seem to be your new favorite novel, one that keeps you up at night, turning my pages, fingers lingering on me so you don't lose your place. You'd think the sound of this beach would give me déjà vu, but it doesn't. Maybe because it's a different ocean than the one we used to visit. Maybe because it's November and I only know the Atlantic in the summertime. I hear things a little differently these days. The waves sound more lonely than peaceful. I'd like to think that if you were here, the sun would shine through the fog brighter than it does now. I find myself missing you before you're even gone, knowing there exists a space without you next to me, a somewhere I never want to feel too comfortable in. My Delilah. I remember her on our porch, how she closed her eyes in the sun as I held her close to me. I can hear the wind chimes from a summer afternoon. I was always clinging to her, trying to savor our quiet moments. She knew I loved her without ever learning my words, and she loved me right back. 3:24 a.m. The softness of a blink is felt in moments when tears run dry. July. I can still see the sparkles on the water and feel the sun on half of my face. Sometimes I open my eyes when we kiss to see if you're as lost in me as I am in you. I want you in every shade that you come in, all the good and all the bad. The memories these walls keep, I wish they could speak, so I could relive you touching me. Drunk. I always want to make a toast before we clink our glasses. It's my way of getting to tell you that I love you. A profession of my love disguised by a spirit. Cheers. You pointed out the Big Dipper to me on the balcony near the end of summer. But I'll let myself forget so you can show me again. Just tell me more about the stars, my love. Allow me to lose myself in your constellations. You let me lay on your clean sheets and wrap myself in your damp duvet. The tumbling washing machine mixed with the sound of your video games. An ordinary day, an ordinary moment, driving home from work, with a yellow setting sky and the windows cracked open. I told myself that I would never let you be the one that got away. It seems to be our winter, so we'll try to make snow angels in your cigarette smoke. He laid down his pen after a few quiet moments, and there were no marks on the corner of the page where his hand had been resting. The ink had run dry. There was nothing left. If you give love and project your heart into the world, you will receive it in return. Maybe not right away, but eventually. I'm living proof. I kept loving, I didn't give up. And I finally got it back. Don't give up on what your heart tells you. Don't ignore the thoughts that keep you up at night. How is it possible that the moment your breath meets mine, my lungs become so clear? It's as if I'd been silently suffocating. I hope you look at me like you do the sky, standing, breathless, admiring my colors. My heart feels heavy today, but not because of sorrow. It feels full or swollen. It's like I've discovered a new compartment inside myself with all this room left to fill. And I'm filling it easily with you. I feel you latching onto a piece of myself that will only continue to grow as I grow. You are engraved in me, settling comfortably into my empty spaces. It's easier for me to talk about forever than it is for you. You're a present man with whom I see this vast, extraordinary life. Part of me can't help but dream about the years to come because of this love that I feel for you now. I'm anxious to keep loving you and to create more moments of bliss. My future is beautiful. because I see the happiness that is inevitable for me with you by my side. I wish I would have kissed you harder before I left this morning. How can it be love if you don't fear the loss of them? You have the capacity to hurt me more than anyone in this world. I know, because I've already felt it. And this vengeful part of me wants to hurt you before you can ever hurt me again. I always end up crying at these local cafes. What once was beautiful is now a somber day. Driving home with an empty passenger seat, an aching reminder of you leaving me. You said I had never felt heartbreak like yours before, that once I had, it would change me. Only then would I understand where you were coming from. I understand now. It's just that neither of us knew that it would be you. The heartbreak that changed me forever. When you told me I had won your heart, I didn't expect that I would have to share your body with anyone else. You were mine, and yet you were everyone else's. I don't need to hear "I love you" every day, or wake up next to you every morning. Just tell me that you see my face when you watch the sunrise, and I'll know. Apologies are a Band-Aid. The wound is still there underneath. It still hurts. It just looks cleaner on the outside. If I apologized, would you be cured? Or is that just a way of hiding the ugliness of truth? The hurt stays. My sorry will never heal the way you want it to. So you might as well learn to heal yourself without waiting for anyone else to do it. And again, the wind is knocked out of me. My breath is gone. It reminds me of a dream I had of you the other night, which now I see was a nightmare. A warning. That quick, sharp tug that makes my stomach turn. And every fucking footstep I hear outside my door makes my heart clench and sink. Because I know it's not you coming home to me. You say that this love feels different now. How could it not? You've broken me, and I'll never be put together the same way. I keep reminding myself that we are not feeling the same things. You said so yourself. I'm more invested than you are. You're not experiencing this rejection. Sitting with one leg crossed over the other, smoking cigarettes and turning from me as you exhale, shifting your attention away. I'm sitting miles from you, it seems, memorizing the curl of smoke escaping your lips, feeling the loss of you, the strain in my chest when you forget I'm even here. And that's what hurts the most, feeling this alone. Mutual heartbreak would be the only comforting option, but you can't seem to spare me that. I let my mind escape and form these flashes of images in my head. Visions of her touching you and purring at your neck. The thought of me crossing your mind for one quick moment before you shake it off and indulge. Practically drooling at the chance to sabotage yourself. I am the fighter. The one who keeps going and never takes the easy way out. In time, someone eventually gives way to collapse. Just know, it will never be me. And your lonely, sober mind will always come back to me when the pillow next to you is vacant and you've exhausted all of your distractions. But keep running. Brush me off. I dare you. That way, in time, when you see I was right, you'll feel a sting on your shoulder where I once was. In the beginning, I always felt like my loving you was an inconvenience to your world. But maybe the only real inconvenience was me forcing your hand into feeling something that you weren't ready for. I think you might be the death of me, and it's as if I'm running at full speed towards my grave. A wound that isn't cared for festers. It deepens, spreads, like a virus under the skin, eventually reaching the brain and suffocating it. Heartbreak is a sickness, a cancer already in our bodies waiting to take over. Sometimes it's an inconvenience that can be patched over. Our bodies have the ability to adapt and live on. Sometimes it's as if we're walking around with a broken bone, refusing to let it be put back in place. And we can withstand the pain. To secure protection, the heart forms a barricade, a double-edged sword, often puncturing itself more than the enemies it's supposed to keep out. Puncturing me. This deep and droning pulse to love him wasn't a choice. It was a need that led me to pursue this beautiful but broken person, this emotionally unavailable human being whose heart was so wrapped up in fear of being vulnerable and exposed, fear of feeding the ache that was already growing. But I craved passionate, overwhelming euphoria. I wanted that kind of love so desperately that I was willing to hurt myself in order to find it. I wanted to love him, and so I did. Through the rejection and the women, I was there, feeling weak. I kept offering my heart to someone who didn't want it, humiliating myself within the pages of a journal that I filled with thoughts of him. But it was love, overflowing. And that's what kept me coming back. The faith I had placed in the words, "Your heart will never lead you astray." So I kept loving, and I let myself fall. I welcomed the inevitable heartbreak. I accepted the reality that I was a hopeless romantic. And when I told him I loved him, it was because I couldn't hold it in any longer. There had been so many moments lying next to one another with my head on his chest, my eyes stinging with tears. I desperately wanted to say, "I love you," but I was scared that it would push him away. Until the overwhelming urge became too heavy to keep in. That rainy, gray afternoon, I walked unshielded under the clouds. I held his face in my hands and said those words that felt as if they were crafted for that moment. And it didn't matter if I was rejected. It was pure truth, whether it was reciprocated or not. I cried when I first heard him say those words back to me, like a confession, something that he hadn't quite accepted yet. Something he was afraid to say out loud, because then it would become real, and he could never take it back. You can't deny your heart. It won't be ignored, and it will kick you in the ass until you accept it. Through all of my tears and anxieties, my fear of never receiving his love, we came together. And I believe I was meant to love him, to give love to someone who so desperately needed it and yet pushed it away fervently. I didn't step back. I latched on even harder and broke through the walls, and thank God I did. How lucky I am to love someone so much and to know I can give so much to one person. A man who deserves to be told, "I love you," as many times a day as it crosses my mind. Don't save me from whatever universe this is that allows me to be on the receiving end of your lips. It was wrong of me to think that this was special when I wasn't the only one. I don't know what I thought would come of this. I should have known that everything you said meant nothing to you when it meant everything to me. I never would have gotten involved had I known you were thinking and saying the same words to someone else. This was a game I didn't agree to play. I was never going to compete for your attention or love. And you tried to keep it a secret, as if I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. That's the cruel part. Making me think I was the one at fault when you were simply spinning your wheel of choice. I was a fool, unknowingly waiting for you to choose between me and other women with the same dazed eyes. The silence between my questions and your inability to answer them is deafening. And the pillow you put between us before you fall asleep doesn't go unnoticed. As if there wasn't enough of a divide. This should do the trick. I stopped taking photos of sunsets a long time ago. I can never capture its colors. The same goes for you. He said, "I love you," with his eyes closed, the tip of his nose resting against mine. Backlit by the sun, with small particles floating in the air around his head. Our fingers interlaced gently. I swore I was looking into heaven, seeing this warm, bright glow behind him. It was a feeling I don't think I'll ever experience again. Not entirely the way I felt it that first time. But I still feel that warmth, like a stream of sunlight being poured into me, moving throughout my body when I hear you say those words. I love you. Moving away from a crowd, stepping into an empty room, then suddenly forgetting why I went there in the first place. Standing still, pausing, racking my brain for signals, waiting to be told what to do. On the receiving end of static radio. Wandering around slowly, trying to trigger my brain into remembering the command. Letting my eyes land on every piece of fabric in the closet, staring at the wispy hairs near the top of my head in the bathroom mirror. Nothing. No signal coming through. Waiting, listening, and receiving. Static. This is my looming anxiety manifested into my morning routine. A new day should be a blank slate, a white room to paint with endless colors. But my chest is suddenly tight and my mind starts to unravel. Something's wrong, and yet there's no reason behind it. Why is this happening? What do I not remember? This crippling sensation coming from the center of my chest is reaching out for something to grab onto, and there's nothing. An uneasy state of being sits there, nestled in close, right as I wake with no explanation. So I go back to sleep, and hope that the answer comes when I wake. In this aspect, I'll probably never be like you. I'll always prefer the familiar over the unfamiliar. I prefer the comfort of soft sheets over stumbling on old cobblestones through darkly lit streets. Or maybe I don't. In truth, I wouldn't know. I wish I could change and allow myself to fight against my own comfort. Just give me more time. Keep pulling me into those moments, and I promise one day I won't want to go back. It's been said that everything you've ever thought has already been thought before by someone else. Everything you've ever said has been said before by someone else. I try to be poetic. I try to come up with beautiful words and make them mean something for you. Make them sound as if they haven't been spoken before. These poetry books at the library sit there like pretentious little fucks saying, "You're too late. We're already here. We beat you." Some other sad, heartbroken romantic has managed to publish their words into the form of a book that will likely sit on a shelf and collect dust for 40 years. But it doesn't matter. I want my words to collect dust. Because even if no one reads them, I'll know that I got there eventually. Or at least before someone else. Graffiti. Another way humans can say, "I beat you." Like dogs marking their territory. With so much undiscovered earth and space, how do we all end up flocking to the same places? There are moments where I remember that I only have this one life. Maybe you believe in reincarnation, but even if that happens, you come back as an entirely different being in an entirely different life. You wouldn't even remember the mistakes you've made as someone else, so how could you learn from them? A sensation that feels like the opposite of déjà vu. It's not that you've been there before, but that you're only going to be there once. You become acutely aware of how little time you have. Each day or month that passes can feel like it has little significance. Until it's 5 years later, and the realization hits that you were waiting for a chance to learn from your mistakes and you ignored it. You missed it. And you absolutely will not get it back, at least not in this life. If we could experience those kinds of moments each day, where we remember for even 1 second how little time we have, would we live differently? I would drink more, indulge in wild, blurred nights, stay awake to watch the sunrise and learn the constellations by heart. I'd sing loudly without the consideration of my neighbors. I'd fly home on a weekend even if there were no nonstop flights. Take beautiful pictures with the camera I bought but hardly ever use. Tell my dad that in elementary school I used to say my favorite color was yellow because that's what his was, and I wanted to be just like him. I know we wouldn't wait around as much. No waiting for signs to point us in the right direction, only following our gut. I wish I could live this way now. Because my biggest fear is waking up in another 5 years and realizing that I've wasted so much of what little time I have left. The tip of your nose is cold, and so are your frosty pink cheeks. I put my hands under your knit hat and cup your ears. These are cold too. You smile and give a little playful grunt as you shake your head. You press your nose against mine, and surprisingly, it's the warmest thing I've felt all day. Catching an early flight, and I have to slip away from your sleepy grip. You look so small and innocent, curled around the white sheets in your old man pajamas that I love. I kiss your cheek a few times and refuel myself on you. Safe travels, baby. A single flame can light up a room. That was you, my love. But it can burn. Also you. Nothing is more interesting than whatever is outside the window when we're alone in this car. Silence. The space between words is endless, and your eyes seem to connect with everything except for me. The seasons hadn't changed in years, and by the time I put on my first summer dress, I had forgotten what the sun felt like. We use people, whether we want to admit it or not. We use people for moments or months or years. It's a selfish thing we do. Telling someone we'll love them forever. Until that forever ends after however long. You couldn't have fathomed an end when you were with them, and now you can't imagine a world in which you're still there. Our forevers are so fleeting, they almost mean nothing. So I stopped saying it. It's enough to say I love you and have it end there. I won't spoil already perfect words with a time stamp, because even forever has an expiration date. No always, no forever, just now. This is how I explain it to someone who can't fully understand. I speak with my hands. They're the most enthusiastic part of myself. And I use my body as a map. This is me. I hold up my right hand horizontally, as a vocal coach does when explaining the rising pitches of do, re, mi, fa, and so on. My hand is at the level of my shoulders. This is me, on the day-to-day, going through the motions, mostly steady, complacent, low energy. This is you, I say. I lift my left hand up to my chin. This is you, every day. Generally happy. You don't think of each day as getting by. You're positive, content. Sometimes we are equal. A good day can make us both feel like this. I raise both of my hands to the top of my head, one on either side of my temple. Each hand represents two different people achieving the same state of being. Elated, high, full of energy, laughing so hard it hurts your stomach. Of course, I am able to feel these things. It's harder to achieve, but I can get there. It's just that I'll have a greater fallback down to reality. To go from here, hands at the top of my head, to here, hands at my shoulders. Going from this elation, this joyfulness and ecstasy to this average mundane state can bring us even lower. I bring my right hand to my chest. I refer to this placement as rock bottom. You can reach the same lows as me, of course, just as I can reach your highs. I bring both hands to my chest. It's no contest. Certainly not one that anyone can win. We are just here, some of us living slightly above or slightly below others. My head feels claustrophobic resting in this sink. My ears are ringing inside this blue ceramic bowl, slowly waiting for the water to sink into my pores and drown out these flashes of color behind my eyes. Focus for a moment. Then a droning pulse of vibration every other second, the faint feeling of spinning like an optical illusion that never stops, parts of my body turning in opposite directions, like a merry-go-round. Just breathe. Remember to blink, flex the corners of your mouth up. Lift your chin, not too high. Don't let them see your empty eyes. When my hand reaches out into the empty air, I like to think that in some other universe, you are pressing your palm against mine and hugging me gently through the breeze. I think we're scared to say it, that maybe you and I just want different things, that we are two fundamentally different people. We can't fit into the boxes that we have drawn for each other, and neither one of us is willing to bend. I tried explaining to my mother why I was crying this morning. It's always different, the reason or the circumstance. Today, calling whatever I'm feeling depression doesn't seem to fit. It's not the right word. Sometimes it just feels like sadness, like a dark shadow mirroring my every move. I feel numb, yet emotional. No balance, no spectrum of white to black. Just black. But vast, so vast that you can lose yourself in it and forget that you're staring into a vacuum. The sun on my face doesn't feel warm or soft. It's hot, and it burns. I'm sweating and itching. His touch isn't comforting or gentle, it's unwelcome and suffocating. I want to be alone, unbothered. And then I feel guilty for being cold, for not letting in any warmth from these outside sources, innocent volunteers that I'm shutting down. It's as if I'm a small, withered person inside a shell, running on old fumes and recycling old smiles, waiting until my limbs stretch out and fill my shape again. Can you just be with me? Be content, lay with me for a long while without getting bored or restless. Find a way to be present in our moments without a beautiful backdrop, without a landscape to distract you. Can you just be with me? Say, I love you in a moment that isn't spectacular just because you want to, without letting a rare, picturesque scene say it for you. Life doesn't provide a perfect stage. You will be left longing for moments that were right in front of you because you couldn't see how special something ordinary could be. She's beautiful, and her legs are wrapped around him more tightly than his arms ever were around me. I've had days of loneliness where I barely spoke because I had no one to talk to. The sound of my own voice would surprise me, remind me that I wasn't a ghost floating through the city, going unnoticed. I was there, just silently disconnected. The voice in my head becoming more familiar than any of the faces around me. We waste so much time waiting for things to get better. We pay little attention to the hours winding down, the hours we'll want more of in the end, hours that we wish we hadn't taken for granted. The idea of complacency has always terrified me. I've always been impatient. In middle school, I wanted more friends. I wanted to be better liked and by more people. I wanted to be less anxious and more social. I wanted to be like my best friend. You could pick her face out of a crowd. She always seemed to be shining. I wanted to move away. I wanted to be on my own. Looking back, it seems like I spent the entirety of my teenage years in waiting. There was always something more that I wanted, and it was always out of reach. I felt out of control in my own life. My anxiety steered me in whatever direction it wanted, regardless of how miserable I was and how often I prayed for it to get better. But it did, eventually. When I took my life into my own hands and steered it towards my future. Not to say I didn't crash land at times, but that only pushed me to fight harder and never settle for anything less than what I wanted. When we throw away our old bouquets, we don't regret buying them in the first place. We live knowing that there will be an expiration date. We don't let it stop us from accepting the beauty that lives in small doses. Nothing is ever wasted. The beauty of something doesn't cease to exist just because it ends. I was trying to sleep. I could see the sun through my closed eyes falling on the pillow next to me. The city's voice outside mixed with the white noise of my bedroom, the stillness of everything. I remembered an unremarkable moment of similar stillness from a younger time. The sound outside aligned me with a former version of myself, and I suddenly felt the gravity of my being. There was a realization of how much we take in, or rather, how little of our lives we actually remember, and how many small moments we lose over time. We're here every minute, every hour, yet we only remember fractions of our lives. I don't know why this particular feeling made my heart heavy, but I found comfort in knowing that I can find this connection with myself, a reminder of my own gravity, even when I'm not looking for it. I don't know if I believe in meditation. I think it's kind of bullshit, but maybe that's because I've never been able to do it. How can anyone possibly turn off their mind and just be? How do you find a quiet moment inside of yourself, let alone in this loud city? I try to picture my mind as being empty, tumbleweeds, white walls, with no swirling emotions or rapid heartbeat. But I still see flashes of thoughts like lights turning on and off. Anxieties that I quickly try to push away only to have them reappear seconds later. I can't seem to drop this acute awareness or get my footing on this peaceful ground. Whoever preaches meditation as a way of combating this marathon of ideas must be lying, or else their mind is built in such a radically different way than mine. Someone with my mind has to take pen to paper to get the thoughts out, otherwise they're ricocheting across my brain with no pattern and no breaks. Many of them are unreasonable, as anxieties tend to be. Projecting emotions that I think I might have, terrified of things that may never come to fruition. Worrying myself to death over possibilities that are more fictional than real. Perhaps someday I'll find somewhere quiet enough to drown out the loud noise that only I can hear. Or I'll find someone to help me shut off my mind, rock my anxiety to sleep, and tuck it away safe and sound. I don't know why I came to this place alone. I can feel myself slowly getting drunk. I feel the burn in my stomach as the alcohol tries to sit nicely. I don't even drink. I only started because of you. I ordered your favorite food. I don't know why. Maybe to summon you, to feel like you were here with me. But the uneaten plate looks pathetic. Or maybe that's just me. I'm getting the two confused. Maybe I'm just sad and drunk. They seem to be one and the same. Maybe each bottle behind the bartender's head represents some other sad person in the world trying to summon someone or something. But the plate stays untouched, wasted. Both of us. 4 a.m. I built a wall around myself as our conversation spiraled and my hope faded. I wrapped myself in a blanket like a shield and felt the concrete blocks of the freshly paved wall around me start to harden. I slept at the edge of the bed, far away from the stranger at the other end. I'm being turned inside out, forced to scrape the bottom of the barrel in order to give you more of me. But what happens when you already have everything, and you still want more? What shall I do then? And how long will it take for me to lose myself? When did you become this hardened, using aggression instead of love? You've always been strong, but this is different. This is survival. This is from being torn down into rubble and building yourself back up, forming bricks from crushed fragments. Who made you this fighter? Who took away your loving self? It's sad leaving these places behind. It's as if I've buried pieces of myself here, tucked away in the sand. This small moment is ending, and I'll never have it back. I'm lucky enough to have had it to begin with. It's a bittersweet ending when you remember that time doesn't repeat itself. There are once-in-a-lifetime chapters that are finite. The specificity of these last few days are only lived once. That's what makes them beautiful, I suppose. The exhilaration in arriving, knowing new experiences await you. And then a somber departure, knowing those firsts are over. So here's to making your mark and leaving traceable footsteps behind as you continue on. I want to frame that picture of us, the one with your hands wrapped around my waist, as if we're two dancing figurines sculpted into one. The sound of rain ceased to exist, and all I felt was the breath from your lips like warm summer air on my neck. It will always seem strange to me to see the flushed faces of the people who meet him. I always notice their hands trembling, most too shy to even look in his eyes. I can't blame them. He's beautiful, which I call him often, much to his dismay. You're so beautiful, and he gives me a look before he smiles in a way that people do when they're bad at accepting compliments. With millions of admirers, you'd think it'd be hard to be with only me. If you could have anyone in the world, why would you settle for one? But it's not like that. It is rare to find someone who sees past the sea of people who follow your every move and hang on your every word. I see how rare it is to know him, truly know him. And when he turns from them after however long, he puts his hand into mine. It's just the two of us again, and I know him better than anyone in the world. You are the treasure I have earned after multiple lifetimes of good behavior. He falls asleep whispering sweet nothings into my neck. If his words left their mark, I'd have no blank space left. Of all the elements, I'll say that I'm snow, melting on impact from your warmth. I can hear the piano keys from the instrumental song that I love when you look at me with your soft eyes. The sun came out for us that day. After we walked the shoveled path elevated above the frozen lake, my feet sank deep into the snow and I laughed, losing my balance in the high altitude with my bare fingers prickling from the cold. I didn't feel beautiful that day, stumbling in front of your lens, but you capture me in moments that I've never noticed before. I see myself through your eyes, red cheeks and messy hair that I'm always moving out of my face, and the light from the sun that came out just for us. You were a rose without thorns, a straight stem with smooth edges. Poisoned petals were what you kept from me, in place of not allowing my fingers to bleed. These days I startle so easily from my sleep. My body reacts violently to waking up as if it was never intending to do so. It's like that falling nightmare, falling, waking up with a sharp breath before I hit the ground and realize that I'm safe. But maybe I'm only safe in my dreams, and the real fall begins when I wake. How do you answer your body's distress call? How do you drown out the sound of your own voice? From a glass, a quarter full, rolled into thick paper or perfectly parallel lines? How do you self-medicate? How do you resuscitate your droning pulse? Standing naked in the cold air, lungs hot and screaming? Or with hands up in some fast car, blurred red lights dyeing your skin? A sense of longing becomes overwhelmingly present when I'm surrounded by all of these people. Have I always been unhappy? Or is it just now? All of a sudden, as if I should have seen it before. And I'm wondering why I didn't recognize the long line of unease. A string that's been there all along underneath, finally becoming untangled. I feel your phantom hand resting on my waist. I have to stop myself from turning around so as not to confront your ghost in the weight of missing you. I can feel your breath on my cheek. With eyes closed, I tilt my head up towards you, expecting to see your sleeping face. But when my eyes open, the recycled air from dusty vents is all that's left to breathe on me. For a while, I considered you a misguided step, until my feet got comfortable slipping through the cracks, and I found myself settling into the grooves of your worn-out cement. And I fall, like a shunned angel who's been disgraced, back into your folds. Nothing compares to the hole that I feel when it hits me again that I can't make you happy. And even my everything will not fulfill you. From the outside, it's hard to imagine why anyone would stay. How can she survive being torn in these different directions? She doesn't bend that way, and yet she will. For him. With our backs facing towards each other, she could almost pass for you. I keep thinking that she is. The tossing under the sheets sounds the same. In the dark, I can't see who's moving anymore, me or her. All I know is, it's not you, and she never will be. I never felt claustrophobic in crowds until I was forced into them. I used to feel like part of these people among the masses. Now I feel like a rock in the stream that everything works its way around. I'm still and unmoving, stuck, while everyone else is free. Let me be this poem, this paper lying unassumingly on your desk. the napkin for your morning coffee to gently graze your lips. It is a privilege to know you in such a way that no one else does. To be the someone who sees your intimate self so completely. Use my chest to rest your head. I swear I'll never move again. People wish for me to be this trailblazing girl, the one who has marked out a path for others to follow on how to be happy, how to fight when your limbs feel broken. Sometimes I feel like a fraud, but then again, I never said I was happy. I've never advertised a cure. I've only told the world what I feel, not how to overcome. It feels fraudulent to be given a pat on the back for simply telling the truth. Take care of the people you love without expecting a reward for being a giving and caring person. Otherwise, you will end up living in your big, beautiful house alone, unknowingly homeless. It's strange to see the world move on when someone you love gets taken from you. The small space surrounding you is stuck, frozen in a moment of loss and shock. Yet the people passing are continuing on at their normal pace. Did they not feel the earth shake? Or slow? Can they hear the thoughts screaming in my head? Their name, their face, memories, flashes of a friend, a lost friend. We always expect the earth to stand still, for the universe to grieve the loved ones we have lost along with us. But it keeps moving, maybe as a sign that we should too. The movement of strangers like a wave taking us with them. So we ebb and flow with the passage of others, coasting off their energy while preserving our own. Because it's too hard to give anything right now to anyone. Except for them, the one we've lost. And we pray that they're silently moving in tandem with us, guiding us through the waves when we can't swim. Love is the only thing we can offer one another at this point. So love really fucking hard. Always. Acknowledgements. First and foremost, I want to thank my beautiful family, Chloe, Tess, Amy, and Dan. I couldn't ask for more supportive parents or encouraging sisters. Also to my grandparents, Rodney and Corrine, and William and Madeline. Of course, I couldn't have made this book without the fans who have rallied around me. I am blessed to be on the receiving end of such passionate, encouraging supporters. To my sweet Delilah for having been such a source of light in my life. Thank you to Danny Streisand and Dara Gordon for being the powerhouse duo of agent and manager that you are. Thank you to my entire team, Michael Mahan, Jody Gottlieb, and Meredith Miller. Thank you to my team at St. Martin's Publishing Group and to Sarah Canton, my editor, who believed in me during the earliest drafts of this book. You took me seriously as a writer and guided me into writing the best possible version of Swimming Lessons. I am incredibly grateful for your faith in me. Thank you to my close friends and loves of my life. You know who you are. This is Lili Reinhart. We hope you've enjoyed Swimming Lessons, a Macmillan audio production from St. Martin's Griffin. This title was produced by Katie Rubitsky, post-production by Danny Meltzer, text copyright 2020 by Lili Reinhart, production copyright 2020 by Macmillan Audio. All rights reserved.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.